The science of murder, the analysis of dangerous new psychedelic drugs, and the fingerprints and trace evidence left behind by suspects at crime scenes are just some of the topics that I'm going to be discussing with a panel of forensic science investigators later this month. And you can come along for free. A special public event to celebrate 50 years of Forensic Science Ireland is going to take place at the National Convention Centre in Dublin on May 28th. The doors are at 6 p.m. and tickets are available now on eventbrite.com. Don't miss it. Fiona Pender was 25 and she was pregnant when she went missing 29 years ago. The story pops up quite a lot. She's certainly not forgotten, even though her mother, who really campaigned hard for her, Josephine, passed away in 2017. But she is back in the news because there's a search being conducted on lands in the Midlands. And obviously everybody is hoping that this time maybe there'll be some remains found. Fiona was, the suspicion is that there's no body murdered.
Yes, of course. And I think it has been formally upgraded to a murder investigation at some point. I mean, the Fiona Pender story is really horrific. I mean, not that any murder is not, but the fact that she was 7 months pregnant, a young woman who was, undoubtedly about to start a new life and went missing in that manner. Her mother, Josephine, a lot of journalists would have talked to her, probably nearly all journalists at some point or not, she would have communicated.
Sat and had tea with her, I think, at one stage. She was very, very,
very warm.
willing and warm woman, always willing, in the hope that, somebody was going to, read it or listen to what she had to say, and that it would just strike a chord with them, and that maybe they would dig deep and come with information, because like all these cases, there's an element of luck with them, isn't there? Or just some little tiny piece of the jigsaw will solve it. In the background, there's this dark character that is suspected of having something to do with the disappearance, and ultimately suspected of murdering and hiding Fiona's body. That individual, we can't say a huge amount about them, but is no longer living in the country, would be aged in sort of late to middle, sorry, what do you call that? Sort of, I'm going to say...
Middle age, you say.
Between your 50s and 60s. No, middle age is 30s, 40s, I would have thought. 50s. I'll go for 50s as well. But I suppose into your 60s. So it's somebody who has no longer been living in the jurisdiction, and somebody who certainly hasn't admitted having anything to do with this whatsoever. She disappeared from her home in Church Street, Tullamore, August 23rd, 1996. That's where she was living. She was looking forward to giving birth to this baby. She had been very excited about it, as was her mother. And she literally vanished without trace from memory.
Yeah, so...
She's going to meet somebody, or...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these cases, there isn't witnesses. There's obviously not a body, so that immediately makes an investigation much more complicated. And the Fiona Pender case, I suppose the fact that she effectively seemed to disappear in thin air, generated huge interest. Now, at one stage, she was included in Operation Trace. This is when the Gardaí went back and looked at a number of cases of women who disappeared and looked to see if there was common factors, looked to see if there was, obviously the name Larry Murphy was one of the names that they looked at to see if there was something connecting these cases. But really, Fiona Pender was ruled out of that investigation. There was one chief suspect. That person remains the chief suspect. There was a number of arrests over the years. I think 5 people were arrested in total, and this chief suspect was one of them. The other arrests probably weren't people suspected of direct involvement, but did they have information? So the guards, I think, are clear who they are looking at as in the primary sense for this murder. As you said, this person has gone out of the country. Now, over the years, there have been a number of searches. There's been a number of digs. Obviously, this dig now is in an area in County Offaly, about 10 kilometres from where Fiona was last seen. And it is believed that the dig has come as a result of information, which it would have to be after this amount of time. Now, in the past, I think in 2014, there was also digs where information was received from somebody known to the chief suspect. It is Gardaí had flown abroad, met this person, and carried out a dig, but that hadn't yielded any results. So a lot of the information about why this dig and why this location is, it's not being made public, but it certainly is on the back of information that has been
And it
received.
follows on from large searches for Jojo Dullard, and they were conducted, unfortunately, without any outcome. And we also sort of, I suppose, have to talk about the Mike Gain case in the middle of this, because there you had vast areas of land around Moll's Gap being searched. Like, you're looking for a needle in a haystack when you're talking about it. And the longer something has gone on, and in the case of Fiona, they're searching bogland.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just get out with a digger and just willy-nilly search. They need to sort of confine the areas. In the case of Mike Gain, because he wasn't that long missing, those searches were over the land, I think, in order to find remains on top of the land rather than buried,
Yeah.
or certainly evidence of a grave. But as the years go by, and in the case of Jojo and Fiona, the decades, any sort of evidence of a grave being dug is obviously gone as well. So they're literally x-raying under the earth to try and see if there's been any unsettlement in the soil, and if there's anything that maybe was dug. They can see. They see the layers. It's like I've told you before about these x-ray machines, and they see the layers, and they can literally see if somebody has dug essentially a grave or anything that looks like it might be. And that's how they usually handle these things. But it's, like, it's a mystery until it isn't. You look at the case of Mike Gain, and they start where he's last seen, which is at the car in the farmyard there, and they started in those slurry tanks because that's the most obvious place, and then they start sweeping outwards and up towards Moll's Gap and the 1,000 acres of land, and the army are drawn in, and the locals and the cadaver dogs and everything, and then he's found, and he's in the first place they looked.
Yeah.
And near the car, near that sort of evidence. But it's very difficult to look back on the case of Fiona Pender to decide what to do now. This is some information that's come in by somebody, a local male, I believe. Usually the guards will, think and ponder a lot before they go digging or go searching. They don't take these things lightly. It's a very costly exercise. And sometimes it could be somebody saw something unusual at the time.
It could be, but I suppose when you look at these cases, the guards are always hoping that somebody who may have heard something in Fiona's case 29 years ago may have had this loyalty to a suspect, and with the passage of time, that loyalty decreases and somebody will come forward. Obviously, in cases like that, there's people may not want to come forward because they feel they're at risk of being held responsible. But the guards are determined to find this body for that family. It's very tragic that Josephine died before her daughter had been found. Also, Fiona's dad died in very, very tragic circumstances, and her brother was killed in a car accident. So the family need that closure, I suppose. But yeah, the information, you see, I suppose inevitably, if a body is buried, it's buried in a remote location. And then you're talking about X-ray machines, and of course they can, but they have to have that narrowed into a specific area. The idea of running them over even a couple of acres is simply impractical. So we can only hope that that this does get results, because it's just very, very, it must be very hard on the family to see it all back in the news again.
Yeah, bring it all back up again. Well, look, we'll follow those searches, and hopefully there will be something this time that might break. In one of these cases, we just seem to be sort of always there's little pieces of information. And I mean, back to our own Crime World Presents case around Emer O'Loughlin, and whereas we're not looking for her remains. We're looking for a suspect who's missing, who's on the run. And you're hoping that out there somebody somewhere will just see something and will see somebody they recognise, or penny will drop with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, like, you're looking for people that will have heard something at the time. And this is, or subsequently will have come across, say, an Emer O'Loughlin's will have come across, maybe John Griffin will have seen or heard of him, heard somebody talk about him, didn't maybe feel comfortable coming to the guards at the time, but might feel comfortable now. And the guards are very receptive. They're not looking to get at somebody who has information. They're looking to receive that information and try and solve a case. They're not looking to drag people in. So, I mean,
but killers also can boast, and they do that quite frequently, especially any of them that maybe are involved in drug or alcohol misuse. And they will boast, and then you'll find that sometimes they have confided in somebody else that they've done something, and the other person is too afraid then to come forward because they'll feel they'll be too easily identified. But you would sort of urge anybody, if they have had those conversations with people, to come forward. In this case, obviously and clearly, somebody who does come forward and police act on the information, the likes of a dig like this, and I've no doubt that the information is coming in good faith, and the Gardaí have investigated as much as they can before they go digging. But even if they don't find something, at least there's movement on the case, and at least it sort of brings it back into the news again.
Exactly. And it may spark even further something in somebody's memory.
God, I mean, the thought of somebody like her never being found.
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal. I mean, a young woman 7 months pregnant. I mean, it's even in the history of Irish crime, you don't find many people who are brutally murdered under those circumstances. And it's that family really, really had to push and struggle to keep it in the news.
Okay, well, let's see where this one goes.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.